There's a kind of quiet suffering that exists beneath the surface of everyday life. It isn't the kind that causes dramatic breakdowns. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. Instead, it lingers silently, day after day, slowly shaping your identity. That suffering is chronic self-doubt. It's the moment you hesitate to speak, even when you have something meaningful to say. The pause before submitting your work. The soft inner voice that asks, "Who do you think you are to try?" It's that creeping uncertainty that doesn't just make you question what you do, it makes you question who you are. And over time, this doubt becomes familiar. So familiar, in fact, that you begin to mistake it for your personality. You describe yourself as cautious, realistic, humble, when really you've simply forgotten what it feels like to trust yourself.
Friedrich Nietzsche understood this kind of internal erosion better than most. He recognized that people in the modern world were suffering not just from external limitations, but from an internal crisis of meaning and courage. They were not weak in body or mind, but in will. They didn't lack intelligence. They lacked belief. He didn't pathologize doubt. He didn't view it as a flaw in your wiring. He viewed it as a signal that you've been living out of alignment, that somewhere along the way you started living according to borrowed values, inherited goals, expectations that were never truly your own. And here's the thing. When your outer life is built on the foundation of someone else's dream, your inner life begins to collapse.
You go through the motions, you achieve milestones, you collect praise, but inside, you feel hollow. And this hollowness, this emotional numbness, doesn't go away with another success. It deepens. It whispers, "This isn't it." And when you ignore that voice, it doesn't go silent, it grows sharper, and it turns into self-doubt. Nietzsche believed that each person is born with a raw, untamed will, a drive to become something more than what they are. He called it the will to power. Not the power to control others, but the power to become who you are meant to be. This idea that you are called to shape yourself, not just find yourself, is essential to understanding Nietzsche's cure for self-doubt. Because most people wait. They wait to be validated, to be noticed, to be chosen. They think confidence is a gift that will appear once everything is perfect, once they've read enough, healed enough, prepared enough. But Nietzsche challenges this illusion. He says, you do not wait to act until you feel strong. You act, and through action, you become strong. This is the difference between becoming and performing. Performing is acting to be seen. Becoming is acting to be transformed. And most people never make that shift. They spend their entire lives curating the appearance of confidence rather than cultivating the reality of it. And deep down, they know it. That's why the doubt doesn't go away, because the foundation isn't real. So Nietzsche says, begin with truth, not external truth, internal truth. Begin by confronting yourself. Where are you lying to yourself about who you are? Where are you pretending to be someone you're not, simply to be accepted? Where are you abandoning your voice, your creativity, your fire, because someone, somewhere, might not approve? These are not casual questions. They are spiritual questions. And Nietzsche believed that if you were courageous enough to answer them honestly, your life would begin to change. Because you'd stop asking what others expect of you. You'd start asking, what kind of life demands the best of me? You'd stop chasing comfort and start pursuing meaning. Now, let's be clear, Nietzsche's path is not easy. In fact, it's brutal, because it doesn't allow you to blame your parents, your past, your critics, or your circumstances. It requires that you take full ownership of your life, not just your actions, but your inaction. Not just your successes, but your regrets. Most people don't want that kind of responsibility. They want to be told what to do. They want a checklist, a formula, a guarantee, but Nietzsche offers none of that. He offers a mirror, and in that mirror you see the raw truth. Your life is your responsibility. And here's the paradox. Once you accept that truth, the doubt starts to lose its power. Because doubt feeds on helplessness, on passivity, on the idea that you must wait until something outside of you changes. But when you realize that the source of your suffering is not the world, but your unwillingness to choose, your values, everything shifts. You stop looking for confidence. You start building character. You stop seeking comfort. You start cultivating resilience. You stop asking for clarity. You start taking action. And that action, no matter how small, begins to change you. You learn that you can keep a promise to yourself. You learn that you can move forward even when you're uncertain. You learn that you don't need applause to validate your steps. You need integrity. Nietzsche believed that when you stop living by imitation, you begin to live by inspiration. Not the fleeting kind, but the kind rooted in moral clarity. And this, more than anything else, cures doubt. Because doubt cannot survive in a soul that lives by principle. It only survives in the chaos of a divided self. So, your first task, Nietzsche says, is to unify yourself. That means stop saying yes when you mean no. Stop pretending to agree just to avoid conflict. Stop shrinking so others feel bigger. Stop wearing masks that keep you safe, but also keep you small. And most of all, stop silencing the voice inside you that says, there's more to you than this. That voice is not delusional. It's divine. It's not your ego, it's your soul. And it doesn't want comfort. It wants growth. It wants expansion, risk, authenticity. It wants you to become. So, become. Become not what is expected of you, but what is demanded by your deepest values. Become not what pleases the world, but what awakens your courage. Become not what will make you liked, but what will make you free. Because at the end of your life, it will not matter how many people approved of you. What will matter is whether you became the person you were called to be. And that, Nietzsche would say, is the only cure for doubt. A life of radical honesty, deliberate action, and unwavering devotion to the values you choose, not the ones you inherited. You've started to become. You've stepped into the mirror Nietzsche offered. You faced the unsettling truth that the world is not here to hand you confidence or clarity or meaning, that these things must be forged from within, slowly, deliberately, in moments of doubt and discomfort. But now comes the harder part, not just awakening your will to power, but sustaining it, not just escaping doubt once, but learning to live beyond its grip. That's what this next part is about. Self-doubt doesn't vanish because of one decision. It returns, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly. It returns in the form of hesitation, a lost day, a harsh comment, a failed attempt. It returns because we are human, and part of being human is being vulnerable to fear. But Nietzsche didn't ask us to become fearless.
He asked us to become stronger than our fear. You started to become. You've stepped into the mirror Nietzsche offered. You faced the unsettling truth that the world is not here to hand you confidence or clarity or meaning, that these things must be forged from within, slowly, deliberately, in moments of doubt and discomfort. But now comes the harder part, not just awakening your will to power, but sustaining it, not just escaping doubt once, but learning to live beyond its grip. That's what this next part is about. Self-doubt doesn't vanish because of one decision. It returns, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly. It returns in the form of hesitation, a lost day, a harsh comment, a failed attempt. It returns because we are human, and part of being human is being vulnerable to fear. But Nietzsche didn't ask us to become fearless. He asked us to become stronger than our fear. He didn't teach us to erase weakness, but to transform it, to transmute pain, failure, rejection into fuel, into clarity, into resolve. That's what the will to power is. Not dominance over others, but mastery over your own inner chaos. The truth is, the most dangerous enemy of your potential is not failure, it's fatigue. The kind that accumulates quietly over months and years. The kind that whispers, "You've tried enough." The kind that says, "Stay safe, don't push, don't speak." It's in those moments that Nietzsche's philosophy becomes not abstract, but vital. Because Nietzsche doesn't offer comfort, he offers a challenge. And the challenge is this: live as if your life were worth repeating. That's the core of his thought experiment, the eternal return. If everything you do were to be lived again and again, eternally, would you still choose it? This isn't about metaphysics, it's about alignment. Are your values worth repeating? Are your actions worth repeating? Are your silences, your compromises, your habits worth eternal repetition? If not, change them now. Not when it's easier, not when someone gives you permission. Now. Because here's the trap most people fall into. They wait to become the person they already are. They wait for someone to validate their voice before speaking. They wait for the fear to disappear before acting. They wait to be invited into their own life. Nietzsche says, stop waiting, act. And not just when it's comfortable, especially when it's not. Because that's when real growth happens. Not when things are smooth, but when they are uncertain, when you have to stand on your own feet, when you have to face the storm with your own spine. That's when you learn who you are, and more importantly, who you're becoming. Start building the habits that align with your deepest values. Stop lying to yourself about what matters. Stop avoiding the work that you know will set you free. Stop pretending you can't change. You can, but not all at once. Confidence doesn't arrive like lightning. It builds like muscle, through repetition, through deliberate movement into discomfort, through failing forward until failure no longer feels fatal, but familiar, normal, even necessary. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming. Becoming is not easy, but it's the only way to transcend doubt. You see, the mistake most people make is thinking that clarity will come before action. It doesn't. Clarity comes from action. You begin, you learn, you adjust, you suffer, you reflect, you keep going. And through that process, doubt becomes smaller. Not because you've silenced it, but because you've outgrown it. Nietzsche's solution is spiritual, not psychological.
He calls us to become the creators of our own meaning, not the consumers of someone else's.
To define our own path, not conform to the expectations of the crowd, to live in alignment with truth, not in obedience to fear. And this brings us to the most misunderstood part of Nietzsche's legacy, the Übermensch, the one who transcends. Most people picture this as a powerful elite figure, immune to pain, but that's not it. The Übermensch is not someone who never suffers. It's someone who chooses meaning in the face of suffering. Someone who keeps going, not because it's easy, but because they've chosen values worth sacrificing for. That can be you. You don't need to be extraordinary. You need to be sincere. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be devoted. You don't need to be loud. You need to be clear. That clarity of values, of purpose, of inner commitment is what makes doubt irrelevant, not absent, but powerless. You might feel it. You might even hear it whisper, "You're not ready." But you'll act anyway, because you know who you are. You know what you stand for. You know where you're going. And that knowing, earned through silence, struggle, and self-reflection, is your freedom. So what does Nietzsche ask of you, finally? He asks you to become the kind of person who no longer lives by accident, to stop waiting for the world to discover your worth and begin living as if your life depends on it, because it does. He asks you to create your own values and live by them with discipline. He asks you to look into the void of uncertainty and not flinch, to fail and rise, to be misunderstood and remain grounded, to walk alone and stay true, to act not because you feel like it, but because it's who you are now. That's the ultimate cure for chronic doubt. Not perfection, not praise, but the steady, unshakable knowing that you are no longer living someone else's life. You are living yours, and that is enough.